It was supposed to be a normal family dinner, one of those nights where Melanie's side of the family took over our house, the chatter filling the space like background noise to the usual tension. But tonight felt different. Maybe it was the way the house seemed smaller than usual, or maybe it was the smell of the roast chicken that hung in the air, thick with the weight of something I couldn't quite name. I'd spent the last few hours making sure everything was perfect, setting the table, running the dishes, while Melanie glided around like she always did. Her family was already starting to fill the dining room when I heard Greg's laugh cut through the noise, a laugh that, for some reason, always made me want to shrink into the walls. Greg was late, of course, always the last to arrive, but somehow always the one who commanded attention. He walked in wearing that silver bracelet he had been bragging about for weeks. Custom, expensive, obnoxiously showy. I felt a sharp pang in my chest as Melanie's mom, Sharon, cooed about it. "Oh, Greg, you always have the nicest things," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. She reached out to touch the bracelet like it was some kind of sacred treasure. And then, of course, there was me, quiet, steady David, the older brother who had always been the responsible one, the one who worked hard as a high school teacher, trying to keep a steady life for his family. Not flashy, not a show-off, just a guy who tried to do the right thing. But it never felt like enough. Dinner started, and the usual game began. Greg took jabs at me with that smug grin on his face, leaning back in his chair like he owned the room. "David's just a teacher, huh? That's cute. I mean, you don't really make real money, do you?" he said, like it was nothing, and everyone laughed. I didn't say anything. I never did. I just sat there, forcing a smile, while the knot in my stomach tightened. I was used to it. But tonight, the pressure felt different. He was being extra cruel, like he knew I was on the edge and just wanted to push me over. The night dragged on, and soon I heard them talking about Greg's recent promotion at work. Melanie's family surrounded him, hanging on every word, like he was some kind of golden boy. I could practically feel the weight of their expectations pressing on my chest, suffocating me. That's when it happened. Out of nowhere, Greg turned to me, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. "Hey, David," he said, his voice casual, too casual. "Did you take my bracelet when I went to the bathroom?" I froze. What? I didn't even know how to respond. I hadn't touched his bracelet. Hell, I didn't even want it. But the way he said it, like it was a question with an answer already decided, it felt like a trap. And there I was, the responsible brother, sitting in front of Melanie's family, being accused of something I didn't do. The room went quiet, the laughter from earlier vanishing like smoke. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The accusation hung in the air, thick with tension. Greg leaned back, a sly smile spreading across his face. "Oh, I'm sure you didn't mean to, David, but it's weird. I didn't leave it anywhere else." I could feel the eyes on me, all of them. Melanie's family, waiting, watching, and then the worst part, the real twist. Greg pulled out his phone and dialed. "Yeah, I need to report something," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "My brother stole my bracelet." I felt my heart drop, and I knew this was only the beginning. The room went dead silent after Greg's words hung in the air like a bad smell. I felt my chest tighten, my pulse pounding in my ears. The kind of stillness that felt like everything was about to explode, and I was standing in the middle of it. Then, Melanie's parents, who had always leaned toward Greg like he was some kind of perfect son, started to murmur under their breath. "David can be a little careless sometimes." I heard Sharon whisper to her husband, like that somehow made sense of it. I couldn't breathe. Melanie, who usually had my back, just stood there, frozen. She wasn't even looking at me. She was staring at the floor, chewing on her lip like she didn't know what to do. She should have said something, but she didn't. Not yet. Greg was feeding off the silence, twisting the knife. "David's been jealous of me forever," he said, like it was some kind of confession. He turned to Melanie's parents, putting on a show of hurt. "He's always been jealous of what I have. Why else would he take my bracelet?" My stomach dropped. I didn't know how to respond. I felt like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't look at Melanie, couldn't look at anyone. I wasn't even sure what was happening anymore. My own brother was accusing me of something I didn't do, and all these people who I'd thought were family, were siding with him. I finally found my voice. "Greg, I didn't take anything. You're making this up," I said. But the words felt hollow, like I was just trying to convince myself. But Greg wasn't done. His voice grew louder, more desperate. "You've always wanted what I have," he spat. "You're jealous, David. You're the one who can't stand the fact that I've got a better life than you." I felt like I was going to crack in half. His words were like bullets, and every one of them hit home. The tension in the room was so thick I could barely breathe. I looked around, hoping for someone, anyone, to speak up for me. But no one did. Sharon, her face scrunching in judgment, turned to me. "Just show us your pockets, David," she demanded, her voice sharp like she was scolding a child. "If you didn't take it, you've got nothing to hide. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to prove myself to anyone, but I couldn't let them keep accusing me." I slowly emptied my pockets, feeling the heat rise in my face as I pulled out my wallet, keys, and a crumpled receipt from the grocery store. It wasn't much, but the whole time, I felt like everyone in the room was waiting for me to pull something incriminating out. Greg's eyes never left me. When I finished, he looked disappointed. "It's probably in your car or somewhere else," he said, dismissing the whole thing like it was nothing. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang, sharp and unwelcome. I barely heard it over the pounding in my chest. I stood there, shaking, while Melanie's parents exchanged looks, their faces tight with discomfort. The officer who walked in was calm, professional. Detective Jones, his badge gleaming under the dim lights of our living room. He took one look around, sizing up the room like he'd seen this kind of thing before. "Mr. Hall," he said, turning to me, his tone flat, like he was just doing his job. "We need to search your belongings." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Go ahead," I muttered, knowing there was nothing to hide. He started with my bag, pulling out the usual keys, wallet, a pack of gum, but then his fingers brushed against something crinkled in the lining. He paused, pulling out a small, crumpled receipt. He unfolded it, and I could see the look on his face shift just a little. "A bracelet," he read aloud. "Sold at a pawn shop today. The name on this receipt is Gregory Hall." The room went silent. My heart stopped. Greg's face drained of color. For a moment, he looked like he might choke on his own words. And in that instant, I realized I wasn't the one who needed to be scared. Make things easier? I couldn't help myself. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "By selling off your own family's stuff?" Greg's eyes flicked around the room, looking for someone, anyone, to back him up. But the only one left in his corner was Melanie, and she wasn't looking at him with the same sympathy anymore. "This isn't just a mistake, Greg," Melanie finally spoke up, her voice trembling but firm. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at her brother. "You tried to frame David for something you did. You've been lying to all of us." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. But for the first time, I felt a strange sense of vindication. It wasn't just me who could see the truth. Melanie had finally seen it too. The weight of the years of covering for Greg, of trying to protect him, of constantly being pushed aside by her family, it all came rushing back to me in a wave of anger and relief. I looked directly at Greg. "You set me up," I said, my voice steady but cutting. "All these years, I've been the one trying to protect you from Mom and Dad's criticism, trying to cover your ass. And this is how you repay me? By accusing me of something I didn't do?" Greg froze. He had no response, no smirk, no comeback. Just silence, his face twitching like he was trying to find some way to fight back but couldn't. I could see the cracks in his armor. The brother I'd once defended, the one I'd stood by, was nothing but a manipulative liar now. "You're pathetic," I added, the words bitter in my mouth. "You'd throw me under the bus just to save face." Greg's face flushed, his fists clenched at his sides, but he didn't say anything. He couldn't. He knew I was right. The image of the perfect, untouchable Greg was crumbling, and nothing he said now could fix it. Melanie, who had been silent for the longest time, was visibly shaking now. She stood between us, a wall of nervous energy, trying to hold it together, but it was clear she was coming apart too. "This isn't happening," she muttered under her breath. "You can't be serious." The pain in her voice hit me harder than I expected. I turned to her then, my voice calm but final. "I'm done, Melanie." Her eyes snapped to mine, wide with disbelief. "What? What do you mean?" "I don't want to be part of this anymore," I said, shaking my head. "You and your family, you've always treated me like I was invisible, like I was just the guy who supported you. But now, I'm done." Melanie's face twisted in shock, like she couldn't believe what I was saying. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, her eyes started to well up, and I saw the pain, real pain, flash across her face. It was too late. The years of me being the invisible one, the background noise in her life, had finally caught up with me. I didn't care anymore. The way she'd stood by Greg, the way her family had always put him first, it was all too much. I'd spent too many years trying to hold on to something that wasn't real. I turned to Greg, who was still standing there, sputtering, searching for some way to fix it. "You've broken everything, Greg," I said, the words sharp, final. "You've wrecked our family. You've wrecked my life. And now you've lost me too." Greg's eyes darted between me and Melanie, his hands trembling, but he was powerless now. The facade was gone. He wasn't the golden child anymore. He wasn't the successful brother with the shiny job and the fancy things. He was just a man who had destroyed everything he touched. Melanie didn't say anything more. She didn't stop me as I grabbed my jacket, didn't try to beg me to stay. She just stood there, her face crumpling with the weight of it all. For the first time in years, I felt free. And yet, as I walked out of that house, the heavy silence in the air behind me told me everything I needed to know. Nothing was ever going to be the same again. The detective left soon after, his presence no longer needed. The house felt too quiet, too still. It was like everyone was waiting for something to break, but no one knew what to say next. I didn't want to stay. Not in that house, not with Melanie and her family, not anymore. I could still feel the weight of Greg's lies, the way he'd manipulated everyone, especially Melanie, and I wasn't going to let myself get caught in it any longer. I turned to Melanie, and she was standing there, looking lost. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, like she didn't know what had just happened, or what to do with the mess Greg had made. But it wasn't just Greg now, it was her too. "I'm done trying to make this work," I said, my voice steady but sharp. I couldn't hold it back any longer. "I'm done being belittled and accused. I've spent years being treated like I don't matter. Like, I'm just the guy who supports you, who cleans up your messes. I'm done." She looked at me, her eyes wide with that same torn expression, the one that always made her seem like she couldn't choose between me and Greg. "You need to calm down, David," she said, her voice soft but insistent. "This is all going too far. We can fix this. It's just a misunderstanding." I shook my head, my frustration boiling up. "No, it's not a misunderstanding. You've been blinded by your brother's lies for way too long. You always choose him over me, and now I'm done with it." She flinched, her hands twitching at her sides, like she wanted to reach out to me, but didn't know how. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I couldn't feel sorry for her anymore. Not after everything that had happened. I grabbed my jacket off the back of the chair, feeling the weight of it, like I was carrying the last part of my old life with me. "I'm leaving," I said, more to myself than to her. "If you ever want to see me as more than just the guy who supports you, you know where to find me. But this isn't going to work. Not anymore." Her lips parted like she was going to say something, but nothing came out. She just stood there, silent, her eyes locked on mine, the space between us stretching farther than I ever thought it could. I walked to the door, the sound of my footsteps loud in the silence. The door clicked shut behind me, but it didn't feel like I was walking away from just her or her family. It felt like I was walking away from everything I had tried to hold on to for so long. I didn't know what was next, but I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep being the afterthought in her life, the one who was supposed to be fine with the scraps they gave me. I wasn't going to be anyone's second choice anymore. Out on the porch, the night air hit me like a cold slap, but it felt like a breath of fresh air. I could breathe again, finally. And then, just as I was about to walk away, I heard the door open behind me. I turned, half expecting to see her running after me, maybe begging me to stay, but there was nothing, just silence. I waited for a moment, but then it hit me. She wasn't going to chase me, not this time. She was standing in the doorway, her figure barely visible in the dim light, but I could see it in her stance. Her silence spoke louder than anything. She'd made her choice, and as I walked down the steps, I realized that I had made mine too. I moved out of the house the next week. The decision wasn't as hard as I'd thought it would be. After everything with Melanie and Greg, it felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I didn't need their approval, their validation, or their constant subtle digs. I was done trying to fit into a life that never saw me as anything more than a background character. I found a small apartment in a quieter part of town. The place was nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit that smelled faintly of fresh paint. But it was mine. I could breathe here, No more awkward dinners with Melanie's family. No more pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I didn't have to be anyone's second choice anymore. I took my time settling in. It felt strange at first, being alone in a space that was truly mine, but the quiet was peaceful. The absence of constant tension was like finally letting out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years. At night, I could open the windows and let the city sounds in, the hum of traffic and distant voices, and it felt more real than anything I'd left behind. I tried reaching out to Melanie a few times, but the distance between us only seemed to grow. Her responses were short, impersonal. She was still stuck in the middle of the mess Greg had made, and I knew deep down that she wasn't ready to face the truth. She couldn't, not yet, and that was fine. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for her to make up her mind about me. I stopped worrying about whether she'd come around. I'd spent too many years trying to make her see things my way, trying to protect her from the reality of what Greg had done. But now, I didn't need her to validate me. Meanwhile, Greg's world was falling apart. I heard about it through the grapevine. He lost his job a few weeks after the pawn shop incident. Turns out, his boss had caught wind of some shady dealings, and when the company started digging into his records, they found a few too many things that didn't add up. The promotion he'd bragged about, the lavish lifestyle he'd flaunted, it all crumbled as quickly as it had built up. Melanie's family distanced themselves from him too. I could tell from the few texts I got from Sharon, asking if I was okay, telling me I was always welcome at family events. It was awkward, but the truth had a way of shaking things up. The lies Greg had woven around him were starting to come undone, and as much as it hurt, it felt like a strange kind of justice. I couldn't help but feel a quiet satisfaction when I thought about it. Greg had made his bed, and now he had to lie in it. I didn't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. No more pretending to be someone I wasn't. No more bending over backward for people who only saw me as a support system for their own drama. I was building a life where I was finally the one who mattered. And for the first time in a long time, I could see a future that didn't include Greg's lies or Melanie's indecision. Maybe it was the first step towards something real.